The hospital corridors smelled like bleach and broken promises. My legs shook as I pushed the mop across the floor, my fourth job of the day finally coming to an end. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I had been awake for 22 hours straight. My back screamed in protest, my hands were cracked and bleeding from the cheap cleaning solutions, and my feet had gone numb 3 hours ago. But I kept moving because that's what I did. I kept moving for Derek. For us. For the marriage I thought we were saving. I didn't know that at that exact moment, my husband was at the state lottery office with another woman, claiming a jackpot worth $38 million. I didn't know that the ticket in his hand had been purchased with my money. Money I had scraped together from my morning shift at the diner, my afternoon shift at the grocery store, my evening shift at the call center, and my overnight shift here at St. Mary's Hospital. I didn't know that by the time I dragged myself home at 3 a.m., my apartment would be empty. No furniture. No clothes. No husband. Just a note on the kitchen counter and divorce papers with a sticky note that read, "Sign these. Don't look for me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to when I still believed in happy endings. My name is Simone Carter, and I used to be the kind of woman who believed that love could conquer anything. I was beautiful once. Not in a way that turned heads on the street, but in the way that made people smile when I walked into a room. My skin was the color of warm coffee, my eyes bright and hopeful, and my smile came easy. I met Derek at a community college 8 years ago. He was charming, funny, and had big dreams about starting his own business. He made me feel special, like I was the only woman in the world who mattered. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony with 20 guests and a cake from the grocery store bakery. The first few years were good. Derek worked in accounting at Westbrook Industries, a major manufacturing company in our city. I worked as a receptionist at a dental office. We had a small apartment, made love on Sunday mornings, and talked about having babies someday. Then the debt started. Derek came home one night 3 years ago with sweat on his forehead and fear in his eyes. He sat me down and told me he had made some mistakes. He had been gambling. Online poker, sports betting, casino trips with coworkers. He owed money to some dangerous people. $50,000. I cried that night. But I didn't leave. I loved him. Marriage meant standing by your partner, right? In sickness and in health, for richer or poorer. So I got a second job. Then a third. Then a fourth. I worked 16-hour days, sometimes 20. I survived on energy drinks and 3 hours of sleep. My friends stopped calling because I never had time to answer. My mother begged me to leave Derek, but I insisted we could fix this. I could fix this. Every penny I made went to paying off those debts. Derek said the people he owed were watching us, threatening us. He showed me text messages with ominous warnings. He said if we didn't pay, something terrible would happen. So I worked. God, how I worked. I lost weight. My hair started falling out. I developed an ulcer. My coworkers at the hospital whispered about how terrible I looked, how I had aged 10 years in the span of 2. But I was doing it for love. I was doing it for us. Derek would come home late most nights, claiming he was working overtime to help with the debts. He was distant, always on his phone, but I told myself it was the stress. We stopped having sex. We stopped talking about anything real. But I held on because I had invested so much. 3 years of my life. My health. My youth. 2 weeks ago, Derek came home with a smile I hadn't seen in years. He kissed my forehead and said, "Baby, I think things are about to turn around for us." I was so tired I could barely process his words. I was getting ready for my overnight shift, drinking my 4th coffee of the day. "What do you mean?" I asked, pulling on my cleaning uniform. "I got a feeling. A really good feeling. Things are going to change." He pulled out a lottery ticket from his wallet. "I bought this with some of the money from your last paycheck. I know you said not to gamble anymore, but this is different. This is destiny." I was too exhausted to fight. I just nodded and left for work. That was the last normal conversation we ever had. Now, standing in my empty apartment at 3 a.m., holding the note in my shaking hands, I read the words that would shatter everything I thought I knew. "Simone, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Tiffany and I won the lottery. $38 million. We're starting a new life together. She's been with me for 2 years, helping me through everything. The debts were never as bad as I said. I needed the money for other things. Don't try to find us. Sign the divorce papers. You'll be fine. You're a survivor. Derek." I read it 3 times. 4 times. 10 times. Tiffany. 2 years. The debts were never as bad as I said. My legs gave out. I collapsed onto the bare floor where our couch used to be. The divorce papers scattered around me like broken promises. He had lied about everything. The debts. The danger. All of it was a lie to keep me working, to keep me compliant, to keep me from questioning where the money was really going. And Tiffany. Who was Tiffany? I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and searched Derek's social media accounts. They were deleted. Every single one. I searched for his name in the news and found it immediately. Local man wins $38 million lottery jackpot. There was a photo. Derek in a new suit, arms around a young blonde woman with a bright smile. The caption identified her as his girlfriend, Tiffany Brooks. The article mentioned how they had been together for over a year and planned to travel the world with their winnings. Over a year. The article said over a year, but his note said 2 years. How long had this affair been going on? I scrolled through more articles, each one feeling like a knife to my chest. They were shown holding the oversized check. They talked about their plans. A house in California. A boat. Starting a charity. Starting a charity with money I had earned working 4 jobs. My phone rang, making me jump. It was Grace, my best friend and the only person who still checked on me regularly. Simone, I just saw the news. Please tell me that's not your Derek. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up. I'm coming over, Grace said. Right now. Don't move. She arrived 20 minutes later to find me still on the floor, still holding the note. Grace was a nurse, strong and practical, but even she looked shocked when she saw the empty apartment. Oh honey, she whispered, kneeling beside me. Oh Simone. He took everything, I finally managed to say. The furniture was in his name. He emptied our joint account. He took my savings. All of it. Grace pulled me into her arms while I cried. Not gentle tears, but the kind of sobbing that comes from somewhere deep and primal. The kind that leaves you gasping for air. That lottery ticket, I choked out between sobs. He bought it with my money. Money from my 4 jobs. I paid for his ticket to freedom. I paid for him to leave me. The sun was rising when I finally ran out of tears. Grace had made coffee using the only 2 cups Derek had left behind. We sat on the floor, backs against the wall, watching the light creep across the empty room. What are you going to do? Grace asked quietly. I thought about the question. What was I going to do? Sign the divorce papers and move on? Accept that I had wasted 3 years of my life being manipulated and used? No. Something hard and cold settled in my chest. Something I had never felt before. I'm going to destroy him, I said calmly. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to make him pay for what he did to me. Grace looked at me with surprise. Sweet, gentle Simone had never talked like this before. But sweet, gentle Simone had died somewhere around 2 a.m. when she read that note. Simone, maybe you should just let it go. Move on. He's not worth it. He stole 3 years of my life, I said, my voice steady now. He worked me like a slave while he was sleeping with another woman. He lied about debts, made me afraid, made me sacrifice my health, my friendships, my future. And then he won the lottery with my money and left me with nothing. I looked at Grace and I could see my own reflection in her eyes. I looked terrible. Hollow. Broken. I'm going to find a way, I said. Even if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to find a way to make him regret every lie he ever told me. Grace squeezed my hand. Then I'll help you however I can. We sat there as the sun filled the empty room, and I made a promise to myself. Derek Carter thought he had gotten away with everything. He thought I would just sign those papers and disappear quietly. He was wrong. I didn't know it yet, but in 3 days a man named Julian Westbrook would walk into the diner where I worked my morning shift. He would sit in my section, order coffee and change everything. But first I had to survive the next 72 hours. First I had to figure out how to keep living when everything I had believed in had turned out to be a lie. The eviction notice came on Thursday morning. I was sleeping on Grace's couch, having spent the last 2 days in a fog of shock and grief. The notice was taped to the door of my old apartment when I went back to see if Derek had left anything behind. Anything at all. Rent unpaid for 3 months. Vacate premises within 7 days or face legal action. 3 months. Derek hadn't been paying rent for 3 months, and I had been too exhausted to notice. All my paychecks had gone into our joint account, which he had controlled. He had told me he was handling the bills. Another lie. I stood in the hallway of that apartment building where I had lived for 6 years and felt something inside me crack even deeper. How had I been so blind? How had I not seen what was happening right in front of me? My phone buzzed. Text messages from debt collectors started flooding in. Phone bill overdue. Electric bill. Water. Internet. Car payment. Insurance. Derek had been pocketing my money and not paying anything. We were months behind on everything. I called the bank. Our joint account had been emptied 5 days ago. Derek had withdrawn every cent, including my direct deposits from my jobs. The banker's sympathetic voice made me want to scream. Since it was a joint account, either party could withdraw funds. I'm sorry, ma'am. You'll need to speak with your husband about recovering the money. My husband, who was somewhere with his girlfriend, and $38 million. I went to the grocery store where I worked my afternoon shifts. The manager, Mr. Peterson, looked uncomfortable when I walked in. Simone, I need to talk to you, he said, leading me to his office. If this is about my schedule, I can work more hours, I said quickly. I need the money right now. I can take any shifts you have. Mr. Peterson sighed. That's the thing. Corporate called. They saw the news about your husband. The lottery win. They think you're going to quit anyway, so they're letting you go. They hired your replacement yesterday. I stared at him. You're firing me because my husband won the lottery? It's not personal. They just assumed you wouldn't need the job anymore. He left me, I said, my voice breaking. He took everything and left me. I need this job. Mr. Peterson looked genuinely sorry, but his hands were tied. I fought for you, Simone. But the decision came from above my head. I'm really sorry. I walked out of that grocery store in a daze. 2 hours later, I got similar calls from the call center in the hospital. Everyone had seen the news. Everyone assumed I was rich now. No one bothered to find out the truth. By Thursday evening, I had lost 3 of my 4 jobs and had no way to pay my mounting debts. Grace found me sitting in her car in the parking lot of her apartment complex, just staring at nothing. Simone, come inside, she said gently, opening the car door. I lost everything, I whispered. My jobs, my home, my savings, my husband. Everything. You still have yourself. And you have me. But I didn't feel like I had myself anymore. The woman I had been was gone. In her place was this hollow shell who couldn't understand how her life had fallen apart so completely. Grace took me inside and made me eat soup. I couldn't taste it. She turned on the television, trying to distract me with a cooking show. Then the news came on. Lottery winners Derek Carter and Tiffany Brooks were spotted today shopping in Manhattan. The couple, who won last week's $38 million jackpot, reportedly spent over $50,000 at luxury stores. When asked about their plans, Mr. Carter stated they were looking at properties in Los Angeles and considering purchasing a yacht. The camera showed Derek and Tiffany walking out of a designer store, carrying multiple shopping bags. Derek was wearing a watch that probably cost more than I made in a year. Tiffany had her arm linked through his, laughing at something he said. They looked happy, carefree. Like they didn't have a worry in the world. Like I didn't exist. I watched Derek lean down and kiss Tiffany on the street corner. The same man who used to kiss me goodbye before I left for my night shifts. The same man who cried in my arms and swore he would make things better. Grace quickly changed the channel, but it was too late. I had seen enough. I'm going to be sick, I said, running to the bathroom. I threw up until there was nothing left, then sat on the cold tile floor with my head against the wall. Through the door, I could hear Grace on the phone with someone, her voice worried. Friday morning brought more bad news. My car was repossessed from Grace's parking lot. The towing company didn't care that I had been making payments. Derek's name was on the title, and he had called to report it. He was systematically destroying any resources I had left. I couldn't go to my remaining job at the diner without a car. The bus route didn't run early enough for the 5 a.m. shift. I called my manager at the diner, Mrs. Chin, and explained the situation. I can give you a few days, she said kindly. But I need reliability, Simone. This is a business. I understand. I'll figure something out. But I had no idea how. Grace offered to drive me, but she worked 12-hour shifts at the hospital and our schedules didn't match. I looked into rideshare apps, but the cost would eat up most of my paycheck. Saturday morning, I woke up on Grace's couch to find her sitting at the kitchen table with a serious expression. Simone, you need to fight this, she said. Derek can't just take everything and walk away. What am I supposed to do? Hire a lawyer? With what money? There are legal aid services. Pro bono attorneys. Something. I laughed bitterly. And tell them what? My husband lied to me for 3 years and then left me? There's no law against being a terrible person. But there might be laws against what he did with your money. The joint account. The car. The rent. She was right, but I was so tired. So defeated. Then my phone rang. An unknown number. Hello? Is this Simone Carter? A woman's voice, professional. Yes. This is Jennifer from Channel 7 News. We're doing a story on your husband's lottery win and would love to get your side of the story. Would you be willing to do an interview? My heart started pounding. What kind of story? Well, we've heard some rumors that the situation isn't quite as simple as it appears. That perhaps Mr. Carter's win came at someone's expense. We want to tell the whole truth. I thought about Derek and Tiffany shopping in Manhattan. I thought about my empty apartment, my lost jobs, my broken life. Can I call you back? I asked. Of course. But please know we're planning to run the story with or without your input. We'd prefer to have your voice included. After I hung up, Grace looked at me expectantly. They want to interview me about Derek, I said slowly. Are you going to do it? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to hide, to disappear and pretend none of this had happened. But another part of me, the part that was growing stronger each day, wanted the world to know what Derek had done. I don't know yet. Sunday morning, Grace drove me to my diner shift. She had gotten someone to cover her hospital shift so she could help me. That's the kind of friend she was. The diner was nearly empty at 5 a.m. Just a few truck drivers and one man in a corner booth, working on a laptop. He was well-dressed, out of place in the greasy spoon atmosphere. I noticed he was handsome in an understated way, with dark hair starting to gray at the temples and sharp, intelligent eyes. Mrs. Chin nodded toward him. That's your table. He's been here since 4:30. Just drinking coffee. I grabbed a pot and walked over. More coffee? I asked, trying to summon a smile. He looked up at me and something flickered in his expression. Recognition maybe, though I was sure I had never seen him before. Please, he said, pushing his cup forward. And maybe some breakfast. Whatever the special is. I wrote down his order and turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. You're Simone Carter, aren't you? My blood ran cold. I don't want to do an interview. I'm not a reporter, he said quickly. My name is Julian Westbrook. I own Westbrook Industries. The name clicked. Derek's company. Derek's former company. I don't want any trouble, I said quietly. Whatever Derek did at work, I had nothing to do with it. I know, Julian said. In fact, that's why I'm here. I think you and I might be able to help each other. I should have walked away. I should have told him I wasn't interested. But something in his tone made me pause. Help each other how? Sit down for a minute, he said, gesturing to the seat across from him. Please. I glanced at Mrs. Chin, who nodded that it was okay. The diner was empty enough. I sat down, and Julian Westbrook looked at me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. Your husband didn't just lie to you about debts and gambling, he said quietly. He's been embezzling from my company for over 2 years. The lottery ticket he won wasn't bought with your money. It was bought with money he stole from Westbrook Industries. The world tilted sideways. What? I whispered. Derek Carter stole over $300,000 from my company. We've been investigating for months, but he was clever about covering his tracks. Then suddenly he wins the lottery and disappears. But I have resources and I have investigators and I'm going to prove what he did. I couldn't breathe. Why are you telling me this? Julian leaned forward. Because you're the key to everything. You're the only person who can help me prove where Derek was getting his money. You lived with him. You saw his patterns. And more importantly, you have a reason to want justice as much as I do. I don't understand. I'm offering you a partnership, Julian said. You help me build a case against Derek for embezzlement and fraud. In exchange, I'll provide you with legal representation, financial support, and when we win, you'll get back everything he took from you and more. I stared at this stranger who was offering me exactly what I needed most. Oh, why would you help me? I asked suspiciously. You don't know me. Because Derek Carter didn't just steal money. He cost me the trust of my board, my investors, and nearly destroyed my company's reputation. I want him to face consequences. And from what I've seen, so do you. He was right. God help me, he was right. If I do this, I want Derek to lose everything, I said, surprised by the hardness in my own voice. I want him to know what it feels like to have your whole life ripped away. Julian's expression didn't change. Then we want the same thing. He pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. Think about it. Call me when you're ready. But don't wait too long. Every day Derek spends that money, it gets harder to recover it. I took the card with shaking hands. Julian Westbrook left a $100 bill on the table for a $10 breakfast and walked out of the diner. I sat there for a long time staring at the card. Grace came in for a to-go coffee before her shift and found me still sitting there. What happened? She asked. I told her everything. About Julian, about the embezzlement, about the offer. Grace sat down heavily. Simone, this could be dangerous. If Derek stole that much money, who knows what he's capable of? He already took everything from me, I said. What else can he do? Hurt you worse. But I couldn't imagine anything hurting worse than what I had already been through. I looked at Julian's business card again. The decision felt enormous, like standing at the edge of a cliff. I could walk away, sign the divorce papers, find a way to rebuild my life quietly. Or I could jump off that cliff and fight back. By the time my shift ended, I knew what I was going to do. I called the number on the card. Julian Westbrook answered on the first ring. "I'm in," I said. "Tell me what I need to do." Julian's office was nothing like I expected. I had imagined cold glass and steel, the kind of corporate environment that made you feel small. Instead, it was on the top floor of the Westbrook Industries building, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The furniture was comfortable, the art on the walls was interesting, and there were actual plants everywhere. Living plants, not fake ones. "Your husband worked in accounting on the 4th floor," Julian said as I entered. He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. "He never made it up here." I sat down, feeling out of place in my diner uniform and worn sneakers. Julian had changed from his casual morning look into a sharp blue suit, but he had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves. He looked less intimidating that way. "Can I get you anything? Coffee, water, tea?" "I'm fine," I said, though my throat was dry. "Can we just get to the part where you tell me what Derek did?" Julian nodded and opened a file on his desk. 2 years ago, Derek Carter created false vendor accounts in our system. He would process payments to these fake companies, then route the money into offshore accounts. Over time, those small amounts added up to $317,000. I felt sick. 300,000. He was smart about it. Never took too much at once. Varied the amounts. Made it look legitimate. We only caught on when one of our auditors noticed a pattern in the payment schedules. "And you're sure it was Derek?" Julian turned his computer screen to face me. On it was a spreadsheet with dates, amounts, and account numbers. These transactions all happened when Derek was logged into the system. We have his digital fingerprints all over it. But what we don't have is enough concrete proof for criminal charges. He deleted files, covered his tracks. A good defense lawyer could create reasonable doubt. "So what do you need from me?" "Evidence. Physical evidence. Did Derek keep records at home? Bank statements, passwords, flash drives, anything that might connect him to those offshore accounts." I thought about our apartment. About how Derek had always kept his home office locked. About the times I had asked to use his computer and he had made excuses. "He had a safe in his office closet," I said slowly. "He told me it was for important documents. Birth certificates, that kind of thing. But he never let me see the combination." Julian's eyes lit up. "Do you still have access to the apartment?" "Until Thursday. That's when the eviction becomes official. Then we need to get into that apartment before Derek has a chance to clear it out. He might have already taken everything important, but it's worth checking. He took all the furniture. But maybe he left some papers behind." Julian pulled out his phone and made a call. "Patricia, I need you at my office." "No." "Yes, it's about the Carter case." He hung up and looked at me. "Patricia Monroe is the best attorney I know. She's going to help us with the legal side of this. I can't afford a lawyer. I told you I'm covering the cost. Consider it an investment in justice." 20 minutes later, a woman in her 50s walked into the office. She had silver hair cut short, sharp eyes, and the kind of confidence that comes from winning a lot of courtroom battles. She wore a green suit that looked expensive. "This must be Simone," Patricia said, extending her hand. Julian filled me in on the basics. "I need you to tell me everything, starting from the beginning." So I did. I told her about meeting Derek, about the supposed gambling debts, about the 4 jobs and the years of working myself to death. I told her about the lottery win, the affair with Tiffany, the empty apartment, the stolen money from our joint account. Patricia took notes, asked questions, and didn't judge. When I finished, she sat back and tapped her pen against her legal pad. "You have grounds for several legal actions," she said. "Fraud, theft, possibly identity theft if he used your information. The joint account money is trickier, but we can argue financial abuse. The bigger problem is the timeline. We need to move fast before Derek has time to hide assets or leave the country." "You think he'd leave?" I asked. $38 million can buy a lot of new identities in a lot of countries with no extradition treaties. The thought made my stomach drop. What if Derek disappeared completely? What if I never got justice? Julian must have seen the panic on my face. We have people watching him. Private investigators tracking his movements. He's not going anywhere without us knowing. "That's legal?" I asked. Patricia smiled slightly. "It's not illegal to observe someone in public places. And right now, Derek and Tiffany are being very public with their new wealth. She pulled out her tablet and showed me photos. Derek and Tiffany at a restaurant, at a jewelry store, at a car dealership looking at sports cars. Each image was time-stamped and dated. We've been documenting their spending, Julian explained. When we prove the lottery ticket was purchased with stolen funds, all of these purchases become evidence. But can we prove that? That he used stolen money for the ticket? That's where the Home Office search comes in, Patricia said. If we can find records linking his offshore accounts to his personal finances, we can establish a pattern. Show that he had access to large amounts of unexplained cash. I want to go to the apartment now, I said suddenly, before I lose my nerve. Julian stood up. I'll drive you. Patricia, can you prepare the paperwork for filing the initial claims? Already started, Patricia said, holding up her tablet. Simone, I'll need you to sign some documents later today. But first, let's see what we can find in that apartment. The drive to my old building was quiet. Julian drove a sleek black car that probably cost more than I would make in 5 years, but he didn't drive like someone showing off. He drove carefully, following all the traffic laws, occasionally glancing over at me. You don't have to do this if you're not ready, he said as we pulled into the parking lot. We can wait. No, I said firmly. Derek thinks he got away with everything. The longer we wait, the more time he has to cover his tracks. The apartment looked even more depressing in daylight. Empty rooms with marks on the walls where furniture used to be. The air smelled stale. I led Julian to what had been Derek's home office. The door was still locked. Do you have a key? Julian asked. No. He always locked it when he left. Julian pulled out his phone and made a call. Hey, I need a locksmith at this address. How fast can you get here? 30 minutes? Make it 20 and I'll double your fee. While we waited, I walked through the empty apartment, looking for anything Derek might have left behind. In the bedroom closet, I found a shoebox pushed into the back corner. Inside were old receipts, ticket stubs from movies we had seen together, a birthday card I had given him 3 years ago. Evidence of a life that no longer existed. The locksmith arrived and had Derek's office door open in 5 minutes. Julian paid him in cash and asked him to forget he had been here. The locksmith, seeing the $100 bills, nodded and left quickly. We stepped into Derek's office. It was the only room in the apartment that still had furniture. A desk, a chair, a filing cabinet. Derek hadn't bothered to take any of it, which meant he thought it wasn't important. But when Julian opened the filing cabinet, we found pay stubs, bank statements, and credit card bills dating back 3 years. This is good, Julian said, photographing each page with his phone. This shows his legitimate income versus his spending. The numbers don't match up. I opened desk drawers and found more papers. Then, in the bottom drawer, hidden under some old magazines, I found a flash drive. Julian, I said, holding it up. His eyes widened. Don't get your hopes up. It might be nothing. But it wasn't nothing. We took everything back to Julian's office. His IT specialist, a young guy named Brian, plugged the flash drive into a secure computer system. The files were password protected, but Brian worked his magic and within an hour, we were looking at spreadsheets that laid out everything. Account numbers, transfer dates, amounts, false vendor names. And most damning of all, a document titled Exit Strategy that detailed how Derek planned to win the lottery using borrowed corporate funds, claim the prize, divorce me, and disappear with Tiffany. He had planned this. All of it. For over a year, he had been planning to use me, steal from Julian's company, and run away with a woman I didn't even know existed. I read the document 3 times, feeling colder with each pass. He wrote it all down, I whispered. He actually wrote down his plan to destroy my life. Julian's jaw was tight. Some criminals are arrogant enough to think they'll never get caught. Patricia reviewed the documents with growing satisfaction. This is everything we need. We can file criminal charges. We can freeze his lottery winnings. We can go after every cent he stole. How long will it take? I asked. The legal system moves slowly, Patricia admitted. But we can file emergency motions to freeze his assets within days. The criminal investigation will take longer. I want him to know I'm coming for him, I said. I don't want him to think he got away with this. Julian looked at me carefully. Are you sure? Once we file these papers, there's no going back. Derek will know you're fighting. He might retaliate. Let him try, I said. The anger that had been building inside me had finally found a target. He took everything from me. He doesn't get to enjoy his stolen money in peace. Patricia smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a lawyer who loved a good fight. Then let's give him the worst week of his life, she said. Over the next few hours, we planned our strategy. Patricia would file multiple legal actions on Monday morning. Criminal complaints with the district attorney. Civil suits for theft and fraud. Emergency motions to freeze Derek's lottery winnings and any accounts connected to him. Julian would provide all the evidence from his company's investigation. The IT records, the false vendor accounts, the paper trail. And I would be the key witness. The wife who had worked 4 jobs while her husband stole and cheated and planned his escape. The media is going to love this story, Patricia warned. Once we file, it'll be public record. Reporters will come after you. Good, I said. Let them. Let everyone know what Derek Carter really is. As the sun set outside Julian's office windows, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Purpose. Julian ordered dinner for all of us from a nearby restaurant. We ate around his conference table, going over details and preparing for the week ahead. You need a place to stay, Julian said suddenly. If Derek finds out you have that flash drive, he might try to intimidate you. I'm staying with my friend Grace. That's the first place he'd look. I have a corporate apartment downtown that's empty. You can stay there until this is over. I wanted to argue, to insist I didn't need his help. But the truth was, I was scared. Derek had already proven he was capable of anything. Who knew what he would do if he felt cornered? Okay, I said quietly. Thank you. Julian drove me to Grace's apartment so I could pack my few belongings. Grace hugged me tight when I told her what we had found. You're going to win this, she said firmly. Derek messed with the wrong woman. The corporate apartment was on the 23rd floor of a modern building downtown. It was small but nicely furnished, with a view of the city lights. Julian showed me how to work the security system and left me with his personal phone number. Call me if you need anything, he said. And Simone? What you're doing takes courage. A lot of people would have just signed those divorce papers and walked away. I'm not most people, I said. After he left, I stood at the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Derek was probably sleeping peacefully, thinking he had gotten away with everything. But his peaceful nights were about to end. I thought about the flash drive sitting in Patricia's office safe. About the documents that proved everything. About the legal papers that would be filed on Monday morning. Derek had taught me that love wasn't enough. That being good and kind and loyal didn't protect you from being used. But he had also taught me something else. He had taught me that I was stronger than I ever knew. That I could work 4 jobs and survive on no sleep. That I could endure years of manipulation and come out the other side still standing. And now I was going to teach him a lesson. I was going to teach him that Simone Carter wasn't someone you could throw away like trash. I had been broken. But I was putting myself back together, and the woman emerging from the ashes was someone Derek had never met. Someone who knew how to fight back. Monday morning arrived with unseasonable sunshine. I woke up in the corporate apartment feeling nervous energy coursing through my body. Today was the day everything changed. Patricia had called at 7 a.m. to confirm she was at the courthouse, ready to file paperwork as soon as the offices opened. Julian sent a text asking if I needed anything. Grace called to wish me luck. I dressed in the only professional outfit I owned, a navy blue dress Grace had lent me. It was a little loose since I had lost so much weight, but it would do. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. My eyes had shadows under them and my cheekbones were too sharp. But there was something new in my expression. Determination. Julian picked me up at 8 a.m. He was dressed in a sharp gray suit, looking every bit the powerful businessman he was. Ready? He asked as I slid into the passenger seat. As ready as I'll ever be. We drove to Patricia's law office, where she had spread out multiple documents across a conference table. Each stack represented a different legal action we were taking. Criminal complaint filed with the district attorney at 8:02 a.m., Patricia said, checking items off a list. Emergency motion to freeze assets filed at 8:15 a.m. Civil suit for fraud filed at 8:20 a.m. Restraining order preventing Derek from leaving the state filed at 8:25 a.m. That fast? I asked, amazed. I have 4 paralegals helping me. We're hitting Derek from every angle at once. By the time he wakes up this morning, his world will already be falling apart. Patricia's phone rang. She listened for a moment, then smiled. Judge Harrison granted the emergency asset freeze. Derek's lottery winnings are officially frozen as of right now. My heart leaped. So he can't spend any more of the money? Not a dime. Any accounts in his name or linked to him are locked down until the court sorts this out. And with the evidence we have, that could take months. Julian's phone buzzed. He read the message and looked up with satisfaction. My investigators just confirmed Derek and Tiffany are at a hotel in Manhattan. They tried to check out this morning and found all their credit cards declined. They're currently arguing with hotel management. I tried not to feel happy about Derek's panic, but I failed. After everything he had done to me, knowing he was finally facing consequences felt like taking my first real breath in years. What happens next? I asked. Now we wait for Derek to make his move, Patricia said. He'll get served with papers today. He'll realize what's happening. Then he'll either try to run or try to fight back. And if he runs? We have the restraining order preventing him from leaving the state. If he tries, that's a criminal offense. Plus, his passport has been flagged. He's not going anywhere. Julian pulled out his laptop and turned it to face me. I want to show you something. On the screen was a video file. He pressed play. It was security footage from Westbrook Industries, dated from 2 years ago. In the video, Derek sat at his desk in the accounting department. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. He was alone in the office. We watched as Derek logged into the system, accessed the vendor payment portal, and processed a transfer for $15,000 to something called Northwest Consulting Services. Northwest Consulting doesn't exist, Julian explained. It's one of the shell companies Derek created. Watch what he does next. Derek pulled out his personal phone and opened a banking app. Within minutes, money appeared in an account he was viewing. He smiled, closed everything out, and left the office. We have footage like this from dozens of nights over 2 years, Julian said. Derek thought the security cameras only monitored the hallways, not individual work areas. He was wrong. I watched my husband steal money with the same casual ease most people use to check their email. There was no guilt on his face, no hesitation. He looked pleased with himself. There's more, Julian said, pulling up another file. We subpoenaed Derek's phone records. Look at this. He showed me a call log between Derek and a number labeled Tiffany B. They talked every day for 2 years, Julian explained. Sometimes multiple times a day. Often right after Derek processed one of these fraudulent payments. She knew, I said slowly. Tiffany knew what he was doing. We believe she was part of it from the beginning, Patricia said. Tiffany Brooks worked as a temp in our HR department 18 months ago. She only worked there for 3 weeks, but that's how she and Derek met. We think they planned this together. The pieces were coming together in a horrible picture. Derek and Tiffany hadn't fallen in love by accident. They had plotted together, stolen together, lied together. And I had been working 4 jobs to fund their future. I want to see her, I said suddenly. Tiffany. I want to know who she is. Julian hesitated. Simone, that might not be a good idea. I'm not going to confront her. I just want to see the woman my husband chose over me. The woman he planned a future with using stolen money. Patricia pulled up a file on her tablet. This is Tiffany Brooks. Age 28. Originally from Connecticut. Moved here 3 years ago. Before working at Westbrook, she had a string of short-term jobs. Nothing lasted more than a few months. She showed me a photo. Tiffany was pretty in an obvious way with blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and the kind of smile that probably made men stupid. She looks young, I said. She's 10 years younger than Derek, Julian confirmed. According to our investigation, she has a pattern of targeting men with money or access to money. You mean Derek isn't her first victim? Patricia flipped through more pages. We found 2 other men in Connecticut who filed complaints against her for theft and fraud. Both cases were settled out of court. One of them was her former boss. The other was a divorced man she met online. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to hate Tiffany. But another part of me realized she was just another version of what Derek had done to me. She had seen an opportunity and taken it. Except she had helped destroy my life in the process. What will happen to her? I asked. That depends on what we can prove, Patricia said. If she was actively involved in the embezzlement, she faces criminal charges too. If she just knew about it and didn't report it, that's trickier. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Simone. Derek's voice was tight with anger. What the hell did you do? My hands started shaking, but I kept my voice steady. I found your flash drive, Derek. The one with all your plans written out. Silence on the other end. Then, you had no right to go through my things. You had no right to steal 3 years of my life. Those files are private. What you did is illegal. Julian was gesturing for me to put the phone on speaker. I did. Nothing I did was illegal, I said. But what you did was embezzlement, fraud, theft. And now your lottery money is frozen and you're facing criminal charges. You're making a mistake, Derek said, his tone changing. Simone, baby, we can work this out. Come on. It's me. Remember what we had. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost funny. What we had was a lie, I said. Everything was a lie. I can explain everything. Just drop the charges. Tell them you made a mistake. We can split the money. You can have half. Just make this go away. No. Simone, please. I'm sorry. I know I hurt you. But we can fix this. You can't buy your way out of this one, Derek. If you don't drop these charges, I'll make your life miserable, he said, the charm dropping away. I'll drag you through court for years. I'll tell everyone you knew about the embezzlement. I'll make sure you never work again. Patricia was writing something on a notepad and held it up. Keep him talking. Why did you do it? I asked, genuinely curious. Why take everything from me? Why not just leave? Because you were useful, Derek said, and the honesty in his tone was shocking. You worked hard. You didn't ask questions. You were the perfect cover. While you were exhausted and compliant, I was building my exit strategy. And Tiffany? Tiffany understands me. She wants the same things I want. You were always too good. Too trusting. It was boring. Something inside me went cold and calm. Thank you, I said. For what? For making it easy to hate you. I hung up. Patricia was smiling. That was perfect. We recorded the whole thing. He just admitted to using you as a cover and confirmed his exit strategy. He threatened me, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Empty threats, Julian assured me. Derek is panicking. He knows he's in trouble. My phone buzzed with a text message from Derek. You'll regret this. Then another. I gave you everything and this is how you repay me? Then another. Tiffany and I are going to be happy. You're just jealous. Patricia took my phone. I'm getting you a new number. These messages are evidence, but you don't need to see them. The rest of the day passed in a blur of legal discussions and strategy planning. Patricia explained what would happen in the coming weeks. Court dates, depositions, discovery. It sounded exhausting, but I was ready for it. Around 5 p.m., Julian's investigator called. Derek and Tiffany had been forced to leave their Manhattan hotel when their credit cards wouldn't work. They had driven back to our city and checked into a cheap motel on the highway. From 5-star hotels to a motel in 3 days, the investigator reported. Derek tried to access his bank accounts online and found everything frozen. He and Tiffany had a screaming match in the parking lot. Cops were called but no arrests made. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. Are you okay? Julian asked after everyone else had left his office. I don't know what I feel, I admitted. Part of me wants Derek to suffer. But another part of me just wants this to be over so I can move on with my life. Both of those feelings are valid, Julian said gently. Revenge and healing aren't mutually exclusive. Why are you doing all this? I asked. Yes, Derek stole from your company. But you're spending a lot of time and resources helping me personally. Why? Julian was quiet for a moment. My father built Westbrook Industries from nothing. He died 5 years ago and left it to me. Every employee, every contract, every dollar matters because it's his legacy. When Derek stole from my company, he stole from my father's memory. He looked out the window at the city below. But more than that, when I started investigating Derek, I found out about you. About the 4 jobs. About how he used you. And I thought about my mother, who worked 2 jobs to help my father build his company. She would be furious if she knew someone was being treated the way Derek treated you. So this is personal for you too, I said. Yes. Justice isn't just about laws and courts. It's about making sure good people don't get destroyed by bad ones. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. What happens now? I asked. Now we wait for Derek's next move. He'll hire a lawyer. He'll try to fight the charges. And we'll be ready for whatever he throws at us. As Julian drove me back to the corporate apartment, I looked out at the city lights and thought about everything that had changed in just 1 week. 7 days ago, I had been working 4 jobs and believing I was helping my husband. Now I was living in a corporate apartment, working with a billionaire and a powerful attorney, fighting to take down the man who had destroyed my life. I didn't know if I would win. I didn't know if Derek would face real consequences. But I knew one thing for certain. I was done being a victim. Whatever happened next, I was going to face it standing up. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of legal activity. Patricia filed more motions. Julian's investigators gathered more evidence. And I spent hours giving depositions, answering questions, and reliving every painful detail of my marriage to Derek. Detective Robert Hayes from the Financial Crimes Unit became a regular presence in our strategy meetings. He was in his late 40s, with graying hair and tired eyes that said he had seen too much corruption in his career. The district attorney is taking this case seriously, he told us during a meeting at Patricia's office. Embezzlement from a major corporation, fraud, identity theft. Derek Carter is looking at serious prison time if we can make the charges stick. What about Tiffany? I asked. We're still building the case against her, Detective Hayes said. We can prove she knew about the embezzlement. We have phone records, text messages, and witness statements placing her at Derek's office after hours. But proving she actively participated is harder. Patricia pulled up a document on her laptop. I subpoenaed Tiffany's bank records. Look at this. She showed us deposits into Tiffany's account, always a few days after Derek processed one of his fraudulent transfers. Small amounts, usually a few $1,000s, always in cash. Derek was paying her, Julian said. Keeping her quiet or compensating her for her role. Or both, Detective Hayes added. This establishes a pattern of financial benefit connected to criminal activity. I studied Tiffany's bank statements. She had been careful, never depositing too much at once, spreading the money across different accounts. But the pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. She's smarter than Derek, I said. She covered her tracks better. Smart criminals are often the hardest to catch, Patricia agreed. But they're also the most arrogant. They think they're untouchable. My new phone rang. It was Grace. Simone, you need to see this. She sounded upset. Turn on Channel 7 News. Julian turned on the television in the conference room. The news anchor's voice filled the room. In a shocking development, lottery winner Derek Carter is now facing multiple criminal charges including embezzlement and fraud. Mr. Carter, who won $38 million just 3 weeks ago, allegedly stole over $300,000 from his former employer, Westbrook Industries. His estranged wife, Simone Carter, is cooperating with authorities. The screen showed a photo of Derek and Tiffany at the lottery office, holding their oversized check. Then it cut to me walking into Patricia's office building, looking exhausted and thin in Grace's borrowed navy dress. Mrs. Carter, who worked 4 jobs to support the household while her husband allegedly embezzled funds and carried on an affair, has filed for divorce and is seeking restitution. Mr. Carter's lottery winnings have been frozen pending the outcome of the criminal investigation. The news switched to an interview with a legal expert discussing the case. I turned away from the screen. This is good, Patricia said. Public opinion matters. The more people know about what Derek did, the harder it will be for him to play the victim. My phone started buzzing with messages. Old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Former coworkers. Even my mother, who I had been avoiding because I was too ashamed to tell her what had happened. Mom's calling, I told Grace later that evening. We were having dinner at her apartment, taking a break from the legal chaos. You should answer, Grace said gently. She's your mother. I picked up the phone. Simone Marie Carter, why did I have to learn about your divorce from the news? My mother's voice was sharp but worried. Hi, Mom. Don't you hi mom me? For jobs? Derek having an affair? Embezzlement? What on earth has been going on? I told her everything. My mother listened without interrupting, which was unlike her. When I finished, there was a long silence. I never liked that boy, she finally said. Always thought he was too smooth. Too charming. Men like that are usually hiding something. You never said anything. You loved him. What was I supposed to do? You were happy. Or I thought you were happy. I thought I was too, I admitted. Where are you staying? That news report made it look like you're homeless. I'm in a temporary apartment. It's actually nice. My lawyer arranged it. Your lawyer. My mother's tone shifted. Simone, how are you paying for all these lawyers and investigators? It's complicated, Mom. Uncomplicated. So I told her about Julian. About how he was funding the legal battle because Derek had stolen from his company. About the partnership we had formed. A billionaire is helping you out of the goodness of his heart? My mother sounded skeptical. Baby, men don't do things for free. What does he want from you? He wants Derek to face consequences for the embezzlement. And what else? Nothing else, Mom. It's not like that. But as I said it, I wondered if my mother had a point. Julian had been incredibly generous. Too generous, maybe. Was there something he wasn't telling me? After I hung up with my mother, I sat with Grace in her living room and voiced my concerns. Do you think Julian has ulterior motives? I asked. Grace considered the question carefully. He's a businessman. Businessmen don't usually do anything unless there's something in it for them. But from what you've told me, he seems genuinely angry about what Derek did. My mother thinks I'm being naive. Your mother thinks everyone is out to get everyone, Grace said with a smile. But maybe it's worth asking Julian directly. If he's as honest as he seems, he'll tell you the truth. The next morning, I went to Julian's office early. His assistant looked surprised to see me. Mr. Westbrook isn't usually in until 9, she said. I'll wait. I sat in the reception area, rehearsing what I wanted to say. When Julian arrived at 8:30 a.m., he was carrying 2 cups of coffee. I had a feeling you'd be here, he said, handing me one of the cups. Come on. In his office, I sat across from him and decided to be direct. Why are you really helping me? I asked. Julian didn't look surprised by the question. I told you why. You told me about the embezzlement and your father's legacy. But that doesn't explain why you're spending so much time and money on my personal situation. There has to be more to it. Julian set down his coffee and leaned back in his chair. You're right, he said. There is more to it. My heart sank. Here it came. The other shoe dropping. 5 years ago my wife left me, Julian said quietly. Elizabeth. We had been married for 8 years. I thought we were happy. I was working long hours building the company, but that's what you do, right? You sacrifice for the future. He looked out the window. Turns out, while I was working those long hours, Elizabeth was having an affair with my business partner. They had been planning to leave me for months. When they finally did, they took half of everything I had built. The divorce nearly destroyed my company. I'm sorry, I said softly. The worst part wasn't losing Elizabeth. It was realizing I had been so focused on work that I missed all the signs. The late nights she claimed were book club meetings. The new clothes and jewelry she said were gifts from friends. The way she started picking fights over nothing, trying to make me the bad guy so she could justify leaving. He looked at me directly. When I found out about Derek, about what he did to you, I saw Elizabeth and her affair partner all over again. The lies. The manipulation. The way they made their betrayal seem like somehow my fault. And I thought, this woman deserves better than to be abandoned and left with nothing. So this is about your ex-wife, I said slowly. No. This is about making sure someone like you doesn't end up the way I almost did. Broken and alone and blaming myself for someone else's betrayal. I didn't know what to say. Julian's honesty had caught me off guard. I should have been upfront about this from the beginning, he continued. I'm helping you because Derek wronged my company, yes. But I'm also helping you because I know what it feels like to be betrayed by someone you trusted completely. And if I can prevent you from feeling that level of pain, then all the money and time is worth it. We sat in silence for a moment. Thank you, I finally said, for being honest. I'm not expecting anything from you, Simone. No repayment, no obligation. When this is over, you're free to walk away and never speak to me again if that's what you want. I don't want that, I said, surprising myself. Julian smiled slightly. Good. Because I'm starting to consider you a friend. The word friend felt right. Despite everything, despite the strange circumstances that brought us together, Julian had become someone I trusted. Now, Julian said, shifting back to business mode, Detective Hayes found something interesting. He pulled up security footage on his computer. It showed Tiffany entering the Westbrook Industries building 6 months ago, long after she had stopped working there. She visited Derek at night, Julian explained. This was 4 months before the lottery win. Watch what she's carrying. In the grainy footage, Tiffany carried a small bag into the building. When she left 2 hours later, the bag looked empty. What was in it? I asked. We don't know. But the next day, Derek processed one of his largest fraudulent transfers. $50,000. You think she brought him something? Instructions maybe? Or equipment? A laptop that couldn't be traced back to him. Prepaid phones. Something that would help hide his tracks. Detective Hayes had requested more security footage from surrounding businesses. Over the next few days, we built a timeline of Tiffany's visits to Derek's office. At least once a month for over a year, always at night, always when the building was mostly empty. This is conspiracy, Patricia said, reviewing the evidence. Tiffany wasn't just a beneficiary. She was actively involved in planning and executing the embezzlement. Can we prove it in court? I asked. With this footage and the bank records? Yes. It won't be easy, but yes. More evidence kept surfacing. Julian's IT team found deleted emails between Derek and Tiffany discussing the plan, and getting out clean. They found text messages about offshore accounts and keeping Simone busy, so she wouldn't notice what was happening. Each piece of evidence made me feel sicker. The extent of the betrayal, the calculation behind it, the way they had talked about me like I was just an obstacle to work around. But it also made me more determined. Derek and Tiffany had thought they were so clever. They had thought they could use me and discard me without consequences. They were wrong. One evening, as I was reviewing documents in the corporate apartment, Grace stopped by with dinner. "You're becoming obsessed," she said, setting Chinese takeout on the counter. "When was the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" "I can't stop," I admitted. "Every time I find another piece of evidence, I need to keep looking. What if there's something we're missing?" "Simone, you have an entire team of lawyers and investigators. You don't have to do this alone. But I want to understand. I want to know exactly what they did and why." Grace sat down beside me. "Understanding won't change what happened. It won't erase the pain. I know. But maybe it'll help me make sense of how I missed it. How I could be so blind." "You weren't blind. You were trusting. There's a difference." I picked at the fried rice Grace had brought. "Do you think I'll ever be able to trust anyone again?" "Eventually. When you're ready. But that's not something you need to figure out right now." She was right, but the question haunted me. Derek had broken something fundamental inside me. The ability to take people at their word. To believe that someone who said they loved me actually meant it. My phone rang. "Patricia." "Simone, we got the bank records from the Lottery Commission. The ticket Derek and Tiffany cashed in was purchased at a gas station 2 blocks from Westbrook Industries at 11:47 p.m. on the night of Derek's largest embezzlement transfer. He used the stolen money to buy the ticket." "Exactly. And we have security footage from the gas station showing Derek purchasing the ticket with cash. This proves the lottery winnings are directly connected to the embezzled funds." "What does that mean for us?" "It means we can argue that the entire lottery prize should be seized as proceeds from criminal activity. Derek and Tiffany won't see a penny of that money." After hanging up, I sat with that information. Derek's big win, his ticket to freedom, his happy ending with Tiffany was built on stolen money. Which meant it could all be taken away. Justice was slow, but it was coming. And I was going to be there to watch Derek's carefully constructed world fall apart, just like he had watched mine fall apart without a second thought. 3 weeks after we filed the initial charges, Derek hired a lawyer. Richard Thornton was known for defending white-collar criminals, and his fees were astronomical. The fact that Derek could still afford him, even with his assets frozen, told us he had money hidden somewhere. Thornton is going to argue that Derek made a mistake in judgment but didn't intend to commit fraud, Patricia explained during our morning meeting. He'll claim the lottery win was pure luck, unconnected to the embezzlement. He'll paint Derek as a hardworking family man who made some errors but doesn't deserve criminal charges. "That's ridiculous," I said. "We have the evidence." "Evidence doesn't matter if the jury believes Derek's story more than they believe ours," Patricia cautioned. "Thornton is good at making juries sympathize with his clients." Julian tapped his pen against the conference table. "Then we need to make sure the public knows the truth before this gets to trial. We need to control the narrative." Detective Hayes nodded. "The district attorney is planning a press conference next week. They want Simone to speak." My stomach dropped. "In front of reporters? On camera?" "You don't have to," Patricia said quickly. "But it would be powerful. A wronged wife telling her story. It humanizes the case in a way statistics and bank records can't." I thought about Derek and Tiffany's faces on the news, smiling with their oversized lottery check. I thought about how the initial reports had made them look like a fairy tale couple, lucky and in love. "I'll do it," I said. The press conference was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Patricia and her team spent days preparing me. What to say, what not to say, how to stay calm when reporters asked difficult questions. "Remember, you're not on trial," Patricia reminded me. "You're the victim. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for fighting back." Grace helped me shop for something appropriate to wear. We went to a department store and she picked out a simple red dress that looked professional but not flashy. "You need to look put together but not wealthy," Grace explained. "We want people to see you as someone who works hard, not someone trying to get rich off Derek's crimes." The morning of the press conference, I was so nervous I could barely eat. Julian picked me up at 7 a.m., even though the conference wasn't until 10. "We have time," he said, noticing my shaking hands. "Let's go somewhere quiet." He drove to a park overlooking the river. We sat on a bench and watched the water for a while. "I'm scared," I admitted. "That's normal. What you're about to do is brave." Or stupid. I'm about to tell the entire city about my failed marriage. You're about to tell the city about a man who committed fraud and used his wife to cover his crimes. There's a difference. What if no one believes me? Julian turned to face me. Simone, I've gotten to know you over the past few weeks. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You worked 4 jobs. You survived betrayal most people couldn't imagine. You found evidence and built a case against someone who thought he had gotten away with everything. That's not weakness. That's power. His words settled something inside me. Okay, I said. I can do this. The press conference was held at the district attorney's office. When we arrived, there were already news vans and reporters setting up equipment. My heart pounded as Patricia led me into the building through a side entrance. District Attorney Margaret Walsh was a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and the bearing of someone who had spent decades fighting corruption. She shook my hand firmly. Mrs. Carter, thank you for being here. I know this isn't easy. I want people to know the truth, I said. Then let's give them the truth. We walked into the press room together. The lights were blinding. Cameras clicked and flashed. I saw at least 20 reporters, maybe more. DA Walsh stepped up to the podium first. Good morning. I'm here today to discuss the ongoing investigation into Derek Carter, who is facing multiple charges including embezzlement, fraud, and identity theft. Mr. Carter systematically stole over $300,000 from Westbrook Industries over a period of 2 years. He used his wife as an unwitting cover while he and his accomplice, Tiffany Brooks, planned their crimes. She outlined the evidence. The false vendor accounts, the security footage, the offshore bank accounts, the connection between the embezzlement and the lottery ticket purchase. This was not a crime of opportunity. This was a calculated scheme to defraud a major employer and abandon family obligations. And today, I want to introduce you to the woman who was most directly harmed by Mr. Carter's actions. Mrs. Simone Carter. I stepped up to the podium. My hands were shaking, so I gripped the sides of the wooden stand. My name is Simone Carter, I began, my voice steadier than I expected. 3 years ago, my husband told me he had gambling debts. He said he owed money to dangerous people. He said if we didn't pay, something terrible would happen to us. The room was completely silent. I believed him because he was my husband and I loved him. So I got a second job. Then a third. Then a fourth. I worked 16 to 20 hours a day, sometimes more. I gave up sleep, I gave up my health, I gave up time with friends and family. I gave up everything to help pay off debts I thought were real. I looked directly at the cameras. But the debts weren't real. My husband was embezzling money from his employer. He was having an affair. And he was using me as a cover story while he and his girlfriend planned their future together. A reporter raised her hand, but DA Walsh gestured for her to wait. The lottery ticket that won $38 million was purchased with stolen money, I continued. Money that ultimately came from my 4 jobs, my exhaustion, my sacrifice. And when Derek won, he didn't tell me. He just left. He took everything from our apartment, emptied our bank accounts, and left me a note and divorce papers. My voice cracked slightly, but I pushed through. I'm here today because I want other people to know that if someone is using you, manipulating you, making you work yourself to death while they plan to leave you, you have options. You can fight back. You can seek justice. You don't have to just accept betrayal and move on. I stepped back from the podium. The reporters immediately started shouting questions. Mrs. Carter, how did you find out about the embezzlement? Have you spoken to your husband since he left? Do you believe Tiffany Brooks was involved in the fraud? What do you want to happen to your husband? DA Walsh fielded most of the questions, but she let me answer a few. I want my husband to face the full consequences of his actions, I said in response to the last question. He didn't just steal money. He stole years of my life. He made me believe I was helping our marriage when really he was destroying it. That kind of manipulation is cruel and it should be punished. After the press conference ended, Patricia rushed me out through the side entrance again. But not before I saw my face on the television screens in the conference room. I looked smaller than I expected, but my expression was determined. You did great, Patricia said as we got into Julian's car. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's the adrenaline. It'll pass. By that afternoon, the story was everywhere. Local news, social media, even national outlets picked it up. The headlines varied. Wife works 4 jobs while husband embezzles and plans lottery win. Lottery winner faces criminal charges after abandoning wife. From riches to legal battles. The dark side of a lottery win. Grace sent me screenshots of social media posts. The overwhelming majority were supportive of me. Team Simone all the way. She deserves every penny of that lottery money. This man is disgusting. I hope they throw the book at him. Working 4 jobs while he cheated and stole? She's a saint for not burning his clothes. But there were also negative comments. She's just bitter he moved on. Gold digger trying to get lottery money? Something doesn't add up. Why didn't she notice what was happening? Both of them are probably lying. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I tried not to read the comments, but it was hard not to see them. People are going to have opinions, Julian said when he found me staring at my phone that evening. That's the price of going public. But look at the overall response. Most people are on your side. He was right. For every negative comment, there were 10 positive ones. Women sharing their own stories of being manipulated by partners. Men expressing outrage at Derek's behavior. People offering support and encouragement. 2 days after the press conference, something unexpected happened. A woman named Rebecca contacted Patricia's office. She had seen the news and wanted to talk. Patricia, Julian, and I met with Rebecca at a coffee shop. She was in her early 40s, well-dressed, with worry lines around her eyes. I was engaged to Derek Carter 12 years ago, Rebecca said quietly. Before he met you. My stomach tightened. What happened? We were together for 2 years. Planning a wedding. I was working as a bank teller at the time. Derek was in school studying accounting. He asked me for access to my bank accounts, said it would make managing wedding expenses easier. I trusted him. I could see where this was going. He drained my accounts, took out credit cards in my name, maxed them all out. By the time I realized what was happening, I was $30,000 in debt and Derek was gone. Did you report him? Patricia asked. I tried. But Derek was smart. He had me sign documents that made it look like I had authorized everything. The police said it was a civil matter, not criminal. I eventually had to declare bankruptcy. Rebecca looked at me with sympathy. When I saw you on TV, I recognized his pattern immediately. Derek targets women who are kind, trusting, and hardworking. He uses them until there's nothing left to take, then moves on to the next victim. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Julian asked. I was ashamed. I felt stupid for being fooled. And honestly, I had moved on with my life. I didn't want to revisit that pain. But when I saw what he did to you, Simone, I couldn't stay quiet. You're fighting back in a way I never did. I want to help. Patricia took detailed notes on Rebecca's story. It established a pattern of fraud that went back more than a decade. This changes things, Patricia said after Rebecca left. If Derek has a history of this behavior, it shows intent. It proves this wasn't just a one-time mistake. Are there others? I wondered aloud. If there was Rebecca and then me and now Tiffany, how many women did Derek use in between? Julian's investigators started digging. Over the next week, they found 2 more women with similar stories. Neither had reported Derek to the police, but both had been left with debt and broken trust. We were building a case that showed Derek Carter was a serial manipulator who had been targeting women for over a decade. Richard Thornton, Derek's lawyer, tried to discredit the women. He called them disgruntled ex-girlfriends. He claimed they were just trying to get attention or money. But the pattern was too clear to ignore. On Friday afternoon, Detective Hayes called with news. We found Derek's hidden bank account. It's in the Cayman Islands under a false name. There's about $50,000 in it. How did you find it? Julian asked. Tiffany made a mistake. She sent an email to Derek using that account number. We subpoenaed her email records and there it was. Tiffany's making mistakes, Patricia observed. The pressure is getting to her. Good, I said. The following week, Tiffany's lawyer reached out to Patricia. Tiffany wanted to make a deal. She's willing to testify against Derek in exchange for reduced charges, Patricia told us. She says Derek planned everything and she was just following his lead. Do we believe that? I asked. No. But her testimony will help convict Derek. And if she's willing to turn on him, it means their relationship is falling apart. I thought about Derek and Tiffany, who had seemed so happy in those early photos. Now they were turning on each other just like they had turned on everyone else. What happens if we accept her deal? I asked. Tiffany pleads guilty to lesser charges. Probably serves some probation and community service. In exchange, she gives us everything we need to guarantee Derek's conviction. It felt wrong. Tiffany had helped destroy my life, and now she might walk away with barely any consequences. But if it meant Derek would definitely go to prison, maybe it was worth it. Let's do it, I said. Patricia nodded and made the call. The trap was set. Derek's former accomplice was about to become the prosecution's star witness. And Derek, who thought he was so clever, was about to discover what it felt like when the people you trust turn against you. The day Tiffany agreed to testify against Derek, everything shifted. Julian's investigators reported that Derek had checked out of the Highway Motel and moved to an even cheaper place on the outskirts of town. Without access to his lottery money or hidden accounts, he was running out of resources fast. His lawyer is probably working on payment plans, Patricia said during our strategy meeting. Richard Thornton doesn't come cheap, and Derek's burning through whatever cash he has left. Good, I said. I didn't feel guilty about it anymore. Derek had put me in financial ruin. Now he was getting a taste of his own medicine. Tiffany's formal proffer session was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Patricia invited me to observe from an adjacent room with a one-way mirror. You don't have to watch, she said. It might be painful to hear what they planned. I want to know everything, I said. So on Tuesday morning, I sat in that small observation room with Julian beside me and watched Tiffany Brooks walk into the interrogation room with her lawyer. She looked different than in the photos. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wasn't wearing makeup. She had dark circles under her eyes and her hands shook as she accepted a cup of water from Detective Hayes. State your name for the record, the court reporter said. Tiffany Marie Brooks. And you understand you're here voluntarily to provide testimony in exchange for a reduced plea agreement? Yes. Patricia led the questioning. She was calm, methodical, gathering facts like pieces of a puzzle. How did you meet Derek Carter? I was working as a temp at Westbrook Industries, in the HR department. Derek came in one day to file some paperwork and we started talking. What did you talk about? Stupid stuff at first. TV shows, weekend plans. But then he started complaining about his wife. How she was always working, always tired. How they never had fun anymore. I flinched at that. Julian's hand briefly touched my shoulder in support. When did the relationship become romantic? Patricia asked. After about 2 weeks. He asked me to meet him for drinks after work. We kissed that night. Within a month, we were sleeping together regularly. The clinical way she described it made my stomach turn. When did Derek tell you about the embezzlement scheme? About 3 months into our relationship. He said he was tired of being poor, tired of working for someone else. He said he had a plan to get enough money to leave his wife and start over with me. Did he explain the plan? He told me he was creating fake companies and processing payments to accounts he controlled. He said it was easy because no one checked the small transactions. He bragged about how clever he was. Hearing Derek describe it as easy made rage flood through me. What was your role in the scheme? Patricia continued. Tiffany hesitated, glancing at her lawyer, who nodded encouragement. At first I just knew about it. But then Derek asked me to help. He said he needed someone to set up the offshore accounts because they couldn't be traced back to him. I used fake IDs and names he provided. I opened the accounts and gave him the information. So you actively participated in the fraud? Yes. Tiffany's voice was barely a whisper. What else did you do? I helped him plan how to use the money. We looked at places we could move to. We researched how to disappear without leaving a trail. And I suggested the lottery ticket. Patricia leaned forward. Explain that. Derek was paranoid about the embezzlement being discovered. He kept saying we needed a cover story for suddenly having money. I said we should buy lottery tickets with some of the stolen cash. If we won, we'd have a legitimate source of wealth. If we didn't win, we'd just keep embezzling until we had enough. But you did win. On our 4th month of buying tickets. I couldn't believe it at first. Derek played the same numbers every week. Numbers from Simone's birthday. That detail felt like a knife. He had used my birthday to win money he would use to leave me. After you won, what was the plan? Derek was going to divorce Simone quickly. We'd take the lottery money and disappear. Maybe go to California or Florida. Start over with new identities eventually once things calmed down. Why didn't you leave immediately after winning? Derek wanted to enjoy it first. He said he'd spent years pretending to be poor and he deserved to have fun. We went to New York, stayed in nice hotels, bought expensive things. He said Simone would just sign the divorce papers and move on. He didn't think she'd fight back. Patricia paused, letting that statement hang in the air. What did Derek tell you about Simone? That she was boring. Simple. That she worked all the time and never questioned anything. He said she was the perfect wife for hiding his crimes because she was too tired to notice what was happening. Listening to how Derek had described me to Tiffany was somehow worse than knowing about the affair. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had mocked me. Used my dedication and love as proof of my stupidity. Did you ever feel guilty? Patricia asked. Tiffany looked down at her hands. Sometimes. especially when Derek would tell me about Simone working 4 jobs. But Derek said she was doing that by choice. He said he'd told her she didn't need to work so much, but she insisted. He made it sound like she was the one creating problems in their marriage. But you knew the truth. I knew Derek was lying to her about debts. I knew she was working to pay off money she thought he owed. But Derek said it wasn't really hurting her. He said she liked staying busy. The rationalizations were pathetic. But I understood them. When you want something badly enough, you convince yourself the harm you're causing isn't that bad. Patricia continued questioning Tiffany for another hour. She extracted details about specific transactions, conversations, and plans. By the end, we had a comprehensive timeline of the entire fraud scheme. When it was over, Patricia came into the observation room. That was perfect, she said. With Tiffany's testimony, Derek has no defense. We can prove intent, planning, and execution. She didn't seem sorry, I said quietly. She's not. She's scared. There's a difference. Julian and I left the prosecutor's office and walked to a nearby park. It was a cold November day, but I needed fresh air. How are you feeling? Julian asked. Empty. Angry. Relieved. I don't know. We sat on a bench and watched people walk by. Normal people living normal lives, unaware of the legal drama unfolding in courtrooms and conference rooms. Derek called me last night, I said suddenly. Julian looked at me sharply. On your new number? He must have gotten it from someone. Maybe my mother. The call came in at 2 a.m. What did he say? I didn't answer. But he left a voicemail. I pulled out my phone and played it for Julian. Derek's voice was tight with desperation. Simone, this has gone too far. I know you're angry. I know I hurt you. But do you really want to destroy my entire life over a mistake? I'll lose everything. I'll go to prison. Is that really what you want? Just drop the charges. Please. We can work something out. You can have half the money. More than half. Just make this stop. The message ended. Have you told Patricia about this? Julian asked. Not yet. I wanted to think about it first. Think about what? Derek is trying to manipulate you again. I know. But he sounded broken. Julian turned to face me fully. Simone, Derek is a con artist. Sounding broken is just another manipulation tactic. Remember what Tiffany just said in there? He called you boring and simple. He used your kindness as a weapon against you. He doesn't deserve your sympathy. I don't feel sympathy exactly. I just feel tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of fighting. Then let the legal system do the fighting for you. You've done your part. You found the evidence, you told your story, you stood up for yourself. Now let the prosecutors and courts handle the rest. He was right. I knew he was right. But some small part of me still remembered loving Derek. Still remembered the man I thought he was. That night I called Grace. Derek contacted me, I told her. What did that piece of trash want? I smiled slightly at her immediate hostility. He wants me to drop the charges. You're not going to, right? No. But Grace, is it wrong that part of me feels bad for him? Grace was quiet for a moment. You're a kind person, Simone. You don't like seeing anyone suffer, even people who hurt you. That's not wrong. That's who you are. But kindness doesn't mean letting someone who destroyed your life escape consequences. When does it end? When do I get to stop thinking about Derek and move on with my life? When justice is served. When he's been held accountable. Then you can close this chapter and start a new one. The following week brought more developments. Derek's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but DA Walsh refused. We have too strong a case, Patricia explained. Derek is facing 20 years minimum. We're not settling for anything less than 15. Derek's trial date was set for January. In the meantime, the court hearings continued. Asset seizure hearings. Restraining order hearings. Divorce proceedings. I attended every one. Sometimes Julian came with me, sometimes Patricia, sometimes Grace. But I was always there, sitting in the gallery, making sure Derek saw me. Making sure he knew I hadn't given up. At one hearing, Derek looked directly at me for the first time since he had left. His face was thinner, his eyes hollow. He mouthed something that looked like, "I'm sorry." I looked away. Richard Thornton, Derek's lawyer, approached Patricia during a recess. "My client is willing to give Mrs. Carter everything," he said. "The lottery money after legal fees and restitution. He'll sign the divorce papers with no contest. He'll admit to the embezzlement. All he asks is that you recommend minimum sentencing." Patricia looked at me. "It's your decision." I thought about it. I could accept the deal. Get the money, get the divorce, move on. Derek would still go to prison just for less time. Or I could push for maximum penalties. Make sure Derek spent the next 2 decades in prison. Get true justice. No deal, I said. He made his choices. Now he lives with the consequences. Thornton's expression tightened. You're making a mistake. My client was willing to give you everything. Tell your client I don't want anything from him except to know he's facing the full weight of what he did. After Thornton walked away, Patricia smiled. You've come a long way from the woman who was afraid to fight back. She was right. A month ago I might have taken the deal. Might have settled for partial justice just to make the pain stop. But I had learned something important. True healing didn't come from avoiding conflict. It came from standing up for yourself even when it was hard. Even when part of you still felt bad for the person who hurt you. Derek had gambled on me being too kind, too forgiving, too tired to fight. He had lost that gamble. And now his walls were closing in, just like mine had when he left me with nothing but divorce papers and a note. The difference was I had climbed out of my darkness. Derek was about to descend into his. The preliminary hearing took place on a gray December morning. The courthouse was packed with reporters, curious onlookers, and members of the community who had followed the case from the beginning. I sat in the front row with Patricia on one side and Julian on the other. Grace was behind me, along with Rebecca and the other women Derek had defrauded over the years. We had become an unlikely support group, bonded by our shared experience of Derek's manipulation. Derek entered the courtroom in handcuffs. His expensive suit from the lottery photos was gone, replaced by an ill-fitting beige jacket and wrinkled pants. He had lost weight and his hair looked unwashed. When he saw all of us sitting together in the front row, his face went pale. The judge, Honorable Catherine Morrison, was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who had a reputation for being tough on financial crimes. Mr. Carter, you stand accused of multiple counts of embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. How do you plead? Richard Thornton stood. Not guilty, Your Honor. The prosecutor, Assistant DA James Mitchell, stood to present the state's case. He was young but had a sharp mind and had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Your Honor, the state will show that Derek Carter engaged in a systematic scheme to defraud Westbrook Industries of over $300,000 over a 2-year period. He created false vendor accounts, processed fraudulent payments, and used his wife as an unwitting cover for his crimes. Mitchell walked the judge through the evidence. The security footage of Derek at his desk processing fake payments. The bank records showing offshore accounts and fake names. The email trail between Derek and Tiffany planning their escape. Then he introduced Derek's exit strategy document, the flash drive I had found in the apartment. Mr. Carter actually wrote down his plan to commit fraud, use stolen money to win the lottery, and abandon his wife. This document shows clear intent and premeditation. The judge read through the document, her expression growing sterner with each page. This is quite detailed, Judge Morrison said. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Carter planned every aspect of his crimes, including how to manipulate his wife into working 4 jobs while he stole from his employer and carried on an affair. The hearing continued for hours. Mitchell called several witnesses. Julian testified about discovering the embezzlement. Detective Hayes explained the investigation process. Brian, the IT specialist, walked through the digital evidence. Then Tiffany took the stand. She was dressed conservatively in a navy suit, her blonde hair pulled back. She had clearly been coached on how to present herself as a cooperative witness rather than a co-conspirator. Mitchell took her through her testimony carefully. Ms. Brooks, can you describe your relationship with the defendant? We were in a romantic relationship for approximately 2 years. Derek told me he loved me and wanted to build a life together. Did Mr. Carter discuss his marriage with you? Yes. He said his wife was difficult and that the marriage had been over for years. He said she was only interested in working and didn't care about him anymore. But that wasn't true, was it? No. I learned later that Derek was lying to Simone about gambling debts to keep her working multiple jobs. He used her exhaustion to hide his crimes. When did you become aware of Mr. Carter's embezzlement? About 3 months into our relationship. He told me he had found a way to make money that no one would notice. He was proud of how clever he thought he was. Did you assist him? Tiffany's lawyer had prepared her for this. Yes. I opened offshore bank accounts using false information. I helped him plan how to spend the money without attracting attention. And I suggested buying lottery tickets as a way to legitimize sudden wealth. Why are you testifying against Mr. Carter today? Tiffany looked directly at Derek. Because I was wrong. I let him convince me that what we were doing wasn't really hurting anyone. But Simone worked herself to exhaustion because of Derek's lies. Westbrook Industries lost money. Employees lost their jobs because of budget cuts necessitated by the embezzlement. We hurt a lot of people. But you're facing reduced charges in exchange for this testimony. Yes, and I'm grateful for that. But I also know I deserve to be punished for my role. I just want to make sure Derek faces consequences too. Richard Thornton cross-examined Tiffany aggressively, trying to paint her as the mastermind and Derek as a victim of her manipulation. But Tiffany held firm, backing up her testimony with specific details that only someone directly involved would know. When Tiffany stepped down, Mitchell called his final witness. The state calls Simone Carter. My heart pounded as I stood and walked to the witness stand. I had been prepared for this, but sitting in that chair with everyone's eyes on me was still terrifying. Mitchell's questions started gentle. Mrs. Carter, can you describe your marriage to Derek Carter? We were married for 6 years. At first things were good. Derek was charming and we had plans for the future. But about 3 years ago, everything changed. How so? Derek told me he had gambling debts. $50,000 owed to dangerous people. He said if we didn't pay we would be hurt. Did you believe him? Yes. He showed me text messages with threats. He seemed genuinely scared. I loved him and wanted to help. What did you do? I got a second job. Then a third. Then a fourth. I worked 16 to 20 hours a day to help pay off the debts. During this time, were you aware Derek was embezzling from his employer? No. I thought we were struggling financially. I thought the money I was earning was going to pay off gambling debts and keep us safe. When did you learn the truth? My voice shook slightly. When I came home from my overnight shift at 3 a.m. and found the apartment empty. Derek left a note saying he and Tiffany had won the lottery and were leaving together. That's when I realized everything had been a lie. How did that make you feel? Destroyed. Used. Betrayed. I had given up my health, my friends, my life to help someone who was stealing from me the entire time. Mitchell showed me the exit strategy document. Is this the first time you saw this? Yes. I found it on a flash drive hidden in Derek's desk after he left. Reading this document, how would you characterize your husband's intentions? He planned everything. He knew exactly what he was doing. He used me deliberately because he thought I was too trusting to notice. Richard Thornton's cross-examination was brutal. He tried to suggest I had known about the embezzlement and was only claiming ignorance to avoid charges. He implied I was exaggerating about the 4 jobs to gain sympathy. Isn't it true, Mrs. Carter, that you chose to work multiple jobs even though your husband asked you not to? No, that's not true. Isn't it true that you and Mr. Carter had discussed the possibility of winning the lottery and leaving town together? No. I never knew about the lottery ticket until after Derek left. Isn't it convenient that you suddenly found this incriminating flash drive right when you needed evidence? I found it where Derek left it. In his desk. I wasn't looking for evidence. I was looking for anything he might have forgotten to take. Thornton tried every angle but I held firm. Patricia had prepared me well. I stuck to the facts and didn't let him twist my words. When I finally stepped down from the stand, my legs were shaking. But I had done it. I had told the truth in front of everyone, including Derek. The judge took a recess to review the evidence. When we reconvened, her decision was swift. Based on the testimony and evidence presented, I find probable cause to believe Derek Carter committed the crimes he's accused of. This case will proceed to trial. Mr. Carter's bail is set at $500,000. Derek's face crumbled. He couldn't make bail. He would remain in custody until trial. As the bailiffs led him away, Derek looked at me one more time. This time there was no apology in his eyes. Only anger. Good. Let him be angry. I had been angry for weeks. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Patricia had prepared a brief statement, but the reporters wanted more. Mrs. Carter, how does it feel to see your husband arrested? Do you think justice is being served? What do you want to happen at trial? I stepped up to the microphones, flanked by Patricia and Julian. I want everyone who is in a situation like I was to know they have options. If someone is using you, manipulating you, making you sacrifice while they plan to leave you, you don't have to stay silent. You can fight back. You deserve better. What message do you have for Derek Carter? I thought about everything I wanted to say. All the anger, hurt, and betrayal. But in the end I kept it simple. Actions have consequences. You taught me that lesson. Now you get to learn it too. The story was everywhere that night. Social media exploded with support. The hashtag Team Simone was trending. People shared their own stories of being manipulated by partners, employers, family members. My phone didn't stop buzzing with messages. Former coworkers reached out to say they had always liked me. Old friends apologized for losing touch. Even people I didn't know sent encouragement. But the message that mattered most came from my mother. "I'm proud of you, baby. You stood up for yourself. That takes real strength." 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. A producer's agent called Patricia. "We want to make a documentary about Simone's story. We'll compensate her fairly and let her maintain creative control." I wasn't sure at first. Did I really want my entire painful experience turned into entertainment? "Think about it this way," Julian said when I asked his opinion. "Your story could help other people recognize manipulation before it destroys their lives." That's powerful. I agreed to meet with the producers. They were a small independent team who specialized in true crime documentaries that focused on victims' perspectives rather than glorifying criminals. "We want to show how financial abuse works," the lead producer, Angela, explained. "How someone can be systematically broken down while everyone around them misses the signs. Your story is important because it shows that fighting back is possible." I signed the contract. The documentary would film over the next few months and release after the trial concluded. Christmas came and went quietly. I spent it with Grace and her family, grateful for their acceptance and love. Julian sent me a gift, a simple card that said, "You're stronger than you know." New Year's Eve, I stood on the balcony of the corporate apartment and looked out at the city. Fireworks were going off in the distance. People were celebrating new beginnings. I thought about where I had been a year ago. Exhausted, working 4 jobs, believing I was helping save my marriage. I had been so naive, so trusting. But I had also been strong in ways I didn't recognize at the time. I had survived years of manipulation. I had kept going when everything hurt. I had found evidence and fought back. The trial was set to begin in 3 weeks. Derek would face a jury of his peers and answer for what he had done. And I would be there, in that courtroom, making sure he knew that Simone Carter was not someone who could be discarded and forgotten. I raised a glass of sparkling cider toward the fireworks. "To new beginnings," I said to no one in particular. "And to the end of old lies." The city sparkled below me, full of possibility. For the first time in years, I felt hopeful about the future. The trial began on a cold January morning. The courthouse steps were crowded with news vans and protesters holding signs. Some signs read "Justice for Simone." Others read "Lock him up." A small group held signs supporting Derek, claiming he was being railroaded by a vindictive ex-wife, but they were vastly outnumbered. I walked past them all with my head held high, wearing the green suit Grace had helped me pick out. Julian and Patricia flanked me, creating a barrier between me and the cameras. "Remember," Patricia said as we entered the courthouse, "this is going to take time. Trials aren't like television. There will be boring procedural moments, legal arguments that don't make sense to non-lawyers, and long stretches of waiting. Don't get frustrated." "I'm ready," I said. And I was. Jury selection took 3 days. Patricia and Assistant DA Mitchell were careful to screen out anyone who had strong opinions about the case from the media coverage, but also anyone who seemed unsympathetic to financial abuse victims. "We need people who can understand how manipulation works," Patricia explained during a break. "People who recognize that smart, capable individuals can still be conned by someone they trust." The final jury was comprised of 8 women and 4 men, ranging in age from 25 to 63. They looked like regular people. Teachers, accountants, a retired postal worker, a small business owner. These 12 people would decide Derek's fate. Opening statements began on Monday of the second week. Assistant DA Mitchell stood before the jury and laid out the case methodically. "Ladies and gentlemen, over the next few weeks you're going to hear about a man who systematically stole from his employer, manipulated his wife, and planned an elaborate scheme to get away with it all. Derek Carter is not a victim of circumstance. He is a calculating criminal who targeted vulnerable people for his own gain." Mitchell walked them through the evidence. The security footage, the fake vendor accounts, the offshore banks, the exit strategy document. Mr. Carter wrote down his crimes. He documented his plans. He thought he was so clever that he would never be caught. And when his wife discovered the truth, he threatened and intimidated her. That is not the behavior of an innocent man. Richard Thornton's opening statement took a different approach. "My client made mistakes. He admits that. Derek Carter got involved in something that spiraled out of control. But he is not the mastermind the prosecution wants you to believe. He was manipulated by Tiffany Brooks, a woman with a history of defrauding men. She convinced him to help her steal from Westbrook Industries. She planned the lottery scheme. And when things went wrong, she turned on him to save herself. It was a desperate strategy, but Thornton sold it well. He painted Derek as weak-willed and easily influenced. A man who loved too much and trusted the wrong person. The prosecution wants you to believe Derek is a monster. But monsters don't document their crimes in detail. Monsters don't leave evidence behind. Derek left evidence because he didn't know he was committing serious crimes. He thought he was following Tiffany's plan. The first week of testimony was technical. IT specialists explained how the fake vendor accounts worked. Bank representatives detailed the offshore accounts. Westbrook Industries CFO testified about the financial impact of the embezzlement. Julian took the stand on Wednesday. Mitchell asked him to describe discovering the fraud. Our auditor noticed irregularities in payment processing. Small amounts to companies we didn't recognize. When we investigated, we found these companies didn't exist. The payments were being routed to offshore accounts. How did you identify Derek Carter as the responsible party? Every fraudulent payment was processed when Derek was logged into our system. His digital fingerprint was all over it. Plus, we had security footage of him alone in the office late at night, processing these payments. Thornton tried to suggest other employees could have used Derek's login credentials, but Julian shut that down quickly. Our system requires biometric verification for high-level transactions. Fingerprint and facial recognition. Only Derek could have processed those payments. The second week brought emotional testimony. Rebecca, Derek's ex-fiancée, explained how he had drained her bank accounts and destroyed her credit. He told me we were building a future together. He said combining our finances was a sign of trust. I believed him because I loved him. The other women Derek had defrauded told similar stories. A pattern emerged. Derek targeted women who were kind, hardworking, and trusting. He isolated them, created financial dependence, then took everything and disappeared. Then Tiffany testified. She was on the stand for 2 full days. Mitchell took her through every detail of the scheme. When she bought the lottery tickets. How she convinced Derek to document everything on the flash drive. The offshore accounts she helped create. Thornton's cross-examination was vicious. He tried to break her testimony, but Tiffany held firm. She admitted her own guilt freely, which made her credible. I did terrible things, she said at one point. I helped Derek steal. I lied. I hurt people. But Derek was the one who planned the embezzlement. He approached me with the idea. I just helped him execute it. Or did you approach him? Thornton suggested. You have a history of targeting wealthy men. Derek wasn't wealthy. He worked in accounting. I targeted him because he had access to company funds. The distinction was important. It showed Tiffany's involvement but didn't exonerate Derek. On Thursday of the second week, I was called to testify again. This time it was for the jury. Mitchell walked me through my entire story. The 4 jobs. The exhaustion. The lies about gambling debts. Finding the empty apartment and the note. Mrs. Carter, at any point during those 3 years, did you suspect your husband was embezzling? No. Never. I trusted him completely. Why? Because he was my husband. Because when you love someone, you believe them when they tell you they need help. I looked directly at the jury. I know some people think I should have known. That I was stupid or willfully blind. But when you're that exhausted, when you're working 20 hours a day, you don't have energy to question everything. You just survive. And Derek used my exhaustion against me. Several jury members nodded. They understood. Thornton tried to suggest I had been complicit, but Mitchell objected to every insinuation. Mrs. Carter is not on trial here, Judge Morrison reminded Thornton. Move on to relevant questions. After I stepped down, the documentary crew filmed interviews with supporters in the hallway. Grace, my mother, Rebecca, and others all spoke about Derek's pattern of behavior. The third week focused on the lottery ticket. The gas station attendant who sold Derek the ticket testified that Derek had paid with cash and seemed nervous. He kept looking around like he didn't want anyone to see him. Then he bought 5 tickets with the same numbers. Did he mention where he got the money? Mitchell asked. No. But he had a lot of $100 bills. I remember thinking it was odd. Detective Hayes testified about tracking the stolen funds from Westbrook Industries through the offshore accounts to Derek's personal finances and ultimately to the lottery ticket purchase. We can trace a direct line from the embezzled money to that winning ticket. Mr. Carter stole from his employer, transferred the money through several accounts to hide the source, then used it to buy lottery tickets. The evidence was overwhelming. By the end of the third week, I couldn't see how any jury could find Derek not guilty. But Thornton still had a few tricks. He called Derek to testify in his own defense. Derek took the stand wearing a humble expression and a cheap suit. He looked directly at the jury and told his version of events. "I'm not proud of what I did. I got involved with Tiffany and she convinced me to help her steal from Westbrook. I thought we were just borrowing money that would be paid back. I didn't understand the legal implications. It was a lie, but Derek sold it well. He teared up at one point, talking about how he had betrayed me and regretted it every day. Simone deserved better than what I gave her. I was a terrible husband. But I'm not the criminal mastermind the prosecution describes. I'm just a weak man who made terrible choices." Mitchell's cross-examination destroyed this narrative. "Mr. Carter, you wrote a document titled Exit Strategy. Is that correct?" "Yes, but..." "In this document you detailed plans to embezzle funds, win the lottery, and leave your wife. Is that correct?" "Tiffany made me write that." "Made you? How did she make you?" "She said we needed to have everything documented so we didn't make mistakes." "But this document is in your handwriting. On your personal computer. Saved to a flash drive you hid in your home office." "Yes." "That doesn't sound like someone being forced, Mr. Carter. That sounds like someone planning crimes." Mitchell showed the jury security footage of Derek processing fraudulent payments, alone at midnight. "Is Tiffany in this video?" "No." "Who is processing these illegal payments?" "I am." "Because Tiffany made you?" Derek hesitated. "She convinced me it was okay." "You're a certified accountant, Mr. Carter. You know embezzlement is illegal. Yet you did it anyway. Multiple times. For 2 years. Derek had no good answer. Mitchell brought up the 4 jobs I had worked, the lies about gambling debts, the way Derek had systematically isolated and exhausted me. "You used your wife as a cover for your crimes, didn't you?" "I didn't mean to hurt her." "But you did hurt her. Deliberately. You lied to her for 3 years. You made her work herself to exhaustion while you stole money and planned to abandon her. That's not weakness, Mr. Carter. That's cruelty." By the time Derek left the stand, his credibility was shredded. Closing arguments took place on Friday of the 3rd week. Thornton tried to salvage his case. "Derek Carter is not a master criminal. He's a flawed man who made terrible choices under the influence of a manipulative woman. Yes, he should face consequences. But those consequences should reflect his role as a participant, not a ringleader." Mitchell's closing was powerful. Derek Carter stole over $300,000. He created an elaborate scheme involving fake companies, offshore accounts, and a manufactured lottery win. He manipulated his wife into working 4 jobs while he spent stolen money on his girlfriend. And when he got caught, he blamed everyone but himself. That is not remorse. That is calculation. And it deserves the maximum penalty. The jury deliberated for 2 days. I spent those 2 days in a fog of anxiety. Patricia kept telling me the case was strong, but I couldn't shake the fear that somehow Derek would escape justice. On Sunday afternoon my phone rang. "Patricia. They have a verdict. We need to be at the courthouse in an hour." The courtroom was packed. Derek was brought in wearing handcuffs. He looked thinner, older. When our eyes met, I saw fear in his expression for the first time. Judge Morrison entered. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" The jury foreman stood. He was the retired postal worker, a man in his 60s with kind eyes. "We have, Your Honor. On the count of embezzlement in the 1st degree, how do you find?" "Guilty." The word hit like thunder. My hand found Julian's and squeezed tight. "On the count of fraud?" "Guilty." "On the count of conspiracy?" "Guilty." Count after count, guilty on all charges. Derek's face crumbled. He looked at his lawyer in desperation, but Thornton had no more tricks. Judge Morrison scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. Outside the courthouse, I stood with Patricia, Julian, and Grace while reporters shouted questions. "How do you feel about the verdict? Do you think justice was served?" I stepped up to the microphones. "Derek Carter spent years making me feel small and powerless. He used my love and trust as weapons against me. Today, a jury of 12 people saw through his lies and held him accountable. That's justice. What happens now? Now I rebuild my life. I start over with the knowledge that I'm stronger than I ever knew. And I hope other people in similar situations know they can fight back too." 2 weeks later, Derek was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. He would also be required to pay restitution to Westbrook Industries and to me personally. The lottery winnings were seized and distributed among Derek's victims. After legal fees and restitution, I received $800,000. It wasn't about the money though. It was about knowing Derek had faced real consequences. that he couldn't manipulate his way out of what he had done. As the bailiffs led Derek away for the last time, he looked at me. Not with anger anymore. With resignation. He finally understood that he had lost. And I had won. 6 months after Derek's sentencing, I stood in front of a small brick building on the east side of town. The sign above the door read Fresh Start Career Counseling, in cheerful blue letters. This was mine. My business. Built with the restitution money and a lot of hard work. Grace pulled up beside me, stepping out of her car with a bottle of champagne. Opening day, she said with a wide smile. How does it feel? Terrifying, I admitted. But good. Really good. Fresh Start Career Counseling provided free or low-cost services to people recovering from financial abuse, job loss, or major life setbacks. I had hired 3 counselors, a business manager, and a part-time administrative assistant. We had partnerships with local colleges and businesses to help our clients find training and employment. It was everything I wished had existed when Derek left me with nothing. Julian arrived next, carrying a plant that was almost too big to fit through the door. Every new business needs something green, he said, setting it down in the reception area. Congratulations, Simone. Over the past 6 months, Julian and I had developed something deeper than friendship, though we had taken it slow. After everything I had been through, I needed time to heal before jumping into anything romantic. But there was something there. Something real and growing. Are you nervous? Julian asked, standing beside me as we looked at the empty office space waiting to be filled with clients. A little. What if no one comes? They'll come. You're offering something people desperately need. Trust me. The documentary about my story had aired 2 months ago. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people reached out to share their own experiences with financial abuse and manipulation. Many of them asked where they could get help. That's when I knew what I wanted to do with the restitution money. The grand opening was scheduled for 10 a.m. By 9:30 there were already people waiting outside. A woman in her 40s who had lost her job after her husband tanked their credit. A young man whose parents had stolen his identity and ruined his finances. A single mother trying to rebuild after an abusive relationship. Each person had a story. Each person needed help. And I was ready to provide it. Patricia stopped by at lunch, bringing sandwiches for everyone. Look at you, she said, surveying the busy office. From working 4 jobs to running your own business in less than a year. That's incredible. I couldn't have done it without you. Without all of you. Patricia shook her head. You did the hard part. You stood up for yourself when it would have been easier to give up. We just provided the tools. That afternoon, a reporter from the local news came by to film a piece on the grand opening. She interviewed me in my office, with its bright yellow walls and comfortable chairs. What made you decide to start this business? She asked. When Derek left me, I felt completely lost. I had no money, no support system, no idea how to rebuild my life. I worked 4 jobs out of fear and desperation. But it shouldn't be that hard. People recovering from financial abuse or major setbacks need guidance, not judgment. They need someone who understands. And you understand because you lived it. Exactly. I know what it feels like to have your credit destroyed, your savings stolen, your confidence shattered. I know how hard it is to walk into an interview when you haven't had a real job in years because you were surviving instead of thriving. What do you want people to know about Fresh Start? That it's never too late to rebuild. That financial abuse is real and devastating, but you can recover. And that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. The interview aired that evening. By the next morning, we had over 50 calls requesting appointments. We're going to need more counselors, my business manager, Sandra, said, looking at the schedule. Then we'll hire more counselors, I replied. The restitution money would cover expansion for at least 2 years. After that, we had plans for grant funding and partnerships with local businesses who wanted to support the cause. 3 months after opening, Fresh Start was thriving. We had helped over 200 people find jobs, repair credit, and rebuild their lives. The local papers wrote features about our success. Other cities reached out asking how to replicate the model. Grace joked that I had accidentally started a movement. You just wanted to help a few people, she said over coffee one Saturday. Now you're changing how communities think about financial abuse. It still feels surreal, I admitted. A year ago, I was sleeping on your couch wondering how I'd survive. Now I'm running a successful business and helping others. That's what happens when you turn pain into purpose. Julian and I had fallen into an easy rhythm. Dinner twice a week. Walks through the park on weekends. Long conversations about everything and nothing. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give. He understood that I needed to rebuild myself before I could fully let someone else in. But gradually the walls came down. One evening we were having dinner at a quiet restaurant downtown. Julian reached across the table and took my hand. "I need to tell you something," he said. My heart raced, old fears surfacing. But his expression was gentle. "I'm falling in love with you," he said simply. "I don't expect you to say it back. I know you need time. But I wanted you to know." I looked at this man who had appeared in my life during my darkest moment, who had helped me without expecting anything in return, who had stood beside me through court hearings and media storms, who had celebrated my victories and supported me through setbacks. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Derek broke something in me. He made me afraid to trust." "I know. And I'm not asking you to trust completely right now. I'm just asking you to let me keep showing up. Let me keep proving that not everyone is like Derek." "You already have proven that." Julian smiled. "Then maybe we can just see where this goes. No pressure. No rush. Just two people who care about each other figuring it out together." "I'd like that." We sat there holding hands, and for the first time in over a year, I felt genuinely hopeful about love. The anniversary of Derek leaving came and went without much fanfare. I was too busy with work to dwell on it. But Grace insisted on marking the occasion with a small celebration. "1 year since you escaped a terrible situation," she said, raising a glass of wine. 1 year of freedom." "It doesn't feel like a year," I said. "So much has happened. You've come so far. From barely surviving to thriving. From victim to victor. From broken to whole." "I'm not sure I'm whole yet," I admitted. "Some days I still feel the damage Derek did. Healing isn't linear. There will be bad days. But look at what you've built. Look at what you've become." She was right. I wasn't the same woman Derek had left behind. I was stronger, wiser, more cautious, but also more confident. I had learned that I could survive anything. That I didn't need someone else to complete me. That I was capable of building a life on my own terms. One afternoon I received an unexpected visitor at Fresh Start. A young woman, maybe 25, with nervous eyes and worn clothes. "Are you Simone?" she asked. "Yes. Can I help you? I saw your documentary. I'm in a situation like you were. My boyfriend controls all our money. He makes me work 2 jobs, but I never see any of the paychecks. He says it's going to debt, but I don't know. I just know I'm exhausted all the time and I can't remember the last time I bought myself anything." My heart broke for her. She was me a year ago. "You came to the right place," I said gently. "Come into my office. Let's talk about your options." Over the next hour, I helped her understand financial abuse. I gave her resources for legal aid, emergency housing, job placement. I helped her see that she deserved better. When she left, she hugged me tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "I thought I was going crazy. I thought it was all my fault." "It's not your fault. And you're going to be okay. It's going to be hard, but you're going to be okay." Moments like that reminded me why I had started Fresh Start. Why all the pain and struggle had been worth it. Julian proposed on a quiet evening in September. We were at his house, cooking dinner together. He was making pasta, I was chopping vegetables. It was domestic and comfortable and felt right. He turned off the stove and pulled a small box from his pocket. "I know this might seem fast," he said. "And I know you need to feel safe. So I want you to know this isn't pressure. It's a promise. A promise that I will spend the rest of my life proving you can trust me. A promise that I see you, all of you, and I love what I see." He opened the box, revealing a simple blue sapphire ring. "Simone Carter, will you marry me?" I looked at this man who had helped me find myself again. Who had never tried to fix me or change me, just supported me. Who had celebrated my independence while showing me that partnership could be healthy. "Yes," I said, surprising myself with how certain I felt. "But I want a long engagement. At least a year. I need to be sure." "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." We told Grace first. She cried happy tears and immediately started planning engagement party ideas. "I knew it," she said. "From the first day I saw you two together, I knew." "You knew before I did," I laughed. "Because I could see how he looked at you. Like you were precious. Like you mattered." My mother was more skeptical when I told her. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" she asked. "After everything Derek put you through?" "I'm not ready to get married tomorrow," I admitted. "But I'm ready to work toward it. Julian is nothing like Derek. He's patient and kind and he respects my independence. Just promise me you'll protect yourself. Keep your own accounts. Your own money. Your own exit strategy just in case." "I promise, Mom." It was good advice even if I didn't think I'd need it. Part of healing was learning to be smart about trust. To love openly but also protect myself. The first year of Fresh Start ended with a celebration. We had helped over 700 people. Our success rate for job placement was 83%. We had expanded to 3 counselors and were planning to open a second location. At the anniversary party, I stood before our clients, volunteers, and supporters. A year and a half ago, I was at the lowest point of my life. I had nothing. No money, no home, no hope. I thought I would never recover from what had been done to me. But I learned something important. We are not defined by what happens to us. We're defined by how we respond. I looked around the room at all the faces of people who had rebuilt their lives. Each of you made the choice to keep going, to seek help, to believe you deserve better. That choice is powerful. It changes everything. So tonight, we celebrate not just Fresh Start success, but your success, your courage, your resilience. The applause was deafening. Later, as Julian and I drove home, he asked what I was thinking. I'm thinking about Derek, I admitted, wondering if he has any idea what I built from the ashes he left behind. Does it matter if he knows? I considered the question. No, I guess it doesn't. I didn't do this for revenge. I did it for me. And for everyone else who needed what I needed. That's growth, Julian said softly. He was right. 6 months ago, I would have wanted Derek to know how well I was doing. I would have wanted him to suffer knowing I had moved on. But now, I genuinely didn't care what Derek thought or felt. He was irrelevant to my life. That was the truest form of freedom. The wedding took place on a spring afternoon, 18 months after Julian proposed. It was small and intimate, held in the garden behind Grace's house. Just close friends and family. I wore a bright maroon dress, not white. I wanted something that represented who I was now, not traditional expectations. My mother walked me down the aisle. She squeezed my hand before letting go. You found yourself again, she whispered. I'm so proud of you. Julian waited at the end of the aisle in a blue suit, smiling. Not with possession or expectation, but with genuine joy. The ceremony was simple. We wrote our own vows. Julian, I said, my voice steady. You appeared in my life when I had given up on people being good. You showed me that kindness still exists. That partnership can be healthy. That love doesn't have to hurt. I promise to honor your support by continuing to be my own person. To never lose myself in us. And to build a life together that makes us both better. Julian's vows were equally honest. Simone, you taught me that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about how you put yourself back together. I promise to respect your independence, to support your dreams, and to spend every day proving that love can be safe. We exchanged rings and kissed as husband and wife. But it didn't feel like the end of anything. It felt like a beginning. The reception was full of laughter and dancing. Fresh Start clients came to celebrate. Patricia and Detective Hayes were there. Rebecca and the other women Derek had hurt came to show their support. Look at all of us, Rebecca said, gesturing around the garden. Derek tried to break each of us. But we're all here thriving. That's the best revenge. It's not revenge, I corrected gently. It's healing. Revenge keeps you tied to the past. This is about building a future. Late in the evening, Grace pulled me aside. Remember when you collapsed on my couch and said your life was over? I remember. Look at you now. Married to a wonderful man. Running a successful business. Helping hundreds of people. You didn't just survive, Simone. You transformed. We transformed, I corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Maybe. But you did the hard work. You chose to fight instead of giving up. That was all you. As the party wound down, Julian and I stood together watching the stars. Happy? He asked. Yes, I said, and meant it completely. It had been 2 years since Derek left that note and walked out of my life. 2 years since I thought my world had ended. But my world hadn't ended. It had just been waiting for me to rebuild it into something better. I thought about the woman I had been, working 4 jobs and believing she was helping her marriage. I felt compassion for her now, not shame. She had done the best she could with the information she had. And I thought about the woman I had become. Strong, independent, capable of helping others while building her own happiness. Derek had tried to destroy me. Instead, he had freed me to become someone better than I ever could have been while carrying his lies. That was the real victory. Not his prison sentence or the restitution money. Not the successful business or the new marriage. The real victory was standing here 2 years later and genuinely feeling happy. Feeling whole. Feeling free. Derek Carter had gambled on me being too weak to fight back. He lost that bet. And I won everything that mattered.